Hello and welcome to the Summer Search Updates, Maps, Emails, Contacts, and More webinar. My name is Valerie Steffen. I'm part of the training staff here at Bright, and I'm very excited to share with you the new features and requested updates that are going to improve your overall search experience and are part of Bright's Summer Search Updates that are going to be implemented later this month. On the agenda today, we're going to give you a tour of what your clients will see and what you as a subscriber to Bright will experience. And then we'll give you a quick sneak peek of another enhancement that's coming a little bit later on this year. So first things first, what you may not notice, but your client will, is a more modern and mobile-friendly email. And these are going to include abbreviations of beds, baths, and square footage. And we've tackled these updates because we know how important presentation and client relationships are to you. So we'd want to encourage you to communicate about this change to your client. The sooner the better. We know that with all of us being more vigilant and sensitive about internet security, any change is something that we'd want to make sure to let our clients know about just out of an abundance of caution so that they're not receiving something that looks different from what they're accustomed to be getting from you and suddenly, be thinking, who is this coming from? Is it safe to open this, etc. So just to point out a couple of the changes that you'll see here, and to be clear, this will be your messages coming through Bright that are, coming through the auto email process automatically. Also those emails that you're sending manually, anything that's coming if you're sending, statistics or a CMA or anything essentially that's coming through Bright. You'll also notice that we've updated the typeface. It's a more modern font. It's going to be used again throughout all the emails, though if you do have a custom email signature set up for yourself in MLS Settings, and that's using some sort of custom font, that will remain the same. We've also optimized the listing details so that they work a little better with mobile devices. We've made the calls to action, so the links to the client portal, more prominent. Now, let's discuss what enhancements you'll see. And we'll touch on these across the pages or sections of Bright that they touch. So first, since we were talking about clients and client relationships, let's talk about the Concierge Map. So if you are someone who's using the auto email setting Concierge, where you like to vet the matches that come through that are a match for a particular client's auto email, and then you either approve or reject, you're going to love that we've added a map tab to this so that if you like to do maybe filtering on layers, like things like, school district or beds, baths, or pricing, whatever it may be, you can take a look at the map and let that aid with your filtering process. And you'll be able to go back and forth between the results tab and the map tab. It's just another way of letting you gather more information and perspective when you're deciding whether or not to or approve or reject a match. We've also made some changes to the contact section that you are likely using as part of your client relationship management. We've added an improved contact list. So we've taken the existing functionality and just redesigned it for improved readability and accessibility. And we've also added a gallery view, and you can toggle back and forth between this view. This is sort of like a cards layout or a gallery layout. So you can choose which of those you prefer so that you just have an alternative way to view your contacts and see core information and activity at a glance. Note that you do still have the same options in terms of actions, but we have tucked some of those bulk actions up under a tools menu. So for instance, if you're exporting into a different product, or if you would like to delete, those options are included in the top left-hand side menu. Or if you happen to be adding by way of importing from a different program into the contacts, you would access that from the top right add menu at the top of the screen. As before, you can click on the contact in order to edit. So you can just click on the name. But instead of the page expanding like it did in the past, you're going to be taken to a more detailed view. So it's just a little shift in the workflow. This detailed view lets you see all the details and activity around that client. If you would need to edit, in the top right-hand corner, we have an edit feature, and you have, as you had before, all the same fields and functionality. All of the base functionality remains the same. It's just a little bit different in terms of how you view it and how you get to that functionality. Now, if it's not the settings for a client, if rather it's the MLS settings for yourself that need updated, you'll note that settings has a new look. So found under your name, accountant settings, MLS settings, these are going to make it easier for you to set up or update your own search or client portal settings. Now let's take a look at search. So I'm just going to pop into our residential search here. You'll note on the page that there is now an option to select all or select none of the listing statuses with a single click. A kickout field has been added to the screen so that you can easily search to include or exclude those active under contract listings with or without a kickout clause. And the bonus really in the addition of that field is that you can search active under contract with kickout and other statuses. So for instance, like active at the same time without that kickout field excluding those items. I do think it's important to note that just like other fields that include a yes, no, or a blank, if you choose not to use the kickout, be sure to set the drop down back to blank. I do want to mention while we're looking at this page that you'll note at the very top the tab icons and the help icons throughout this page have had a little bit of a facelift. They're just slightly different icons. Also, the tool items at the bottom of the page on the action bar, those have also been updated. They just have a more modern look and typeface, and you'll note that that is holding true as they carry throughout the map tab and the results tab. Now, another thing that's been updated on this page, and you'll also see has been updated again where it's accessible on map and results, is the recent searches section. So the recent searches list has been updated with a fresh look. And again, it's part of that mobile-oriented mindset for providing users with the best experience possible regardless of which device they're using. So the menus open and collapse to the right of the screen. Again, we've updated icons included. We've made the descriptions a little bit clearer here. And you're going to see that it's just a little bit easier to use. So you can click on an item to go to those results, or you can click on the arrow to close the feature wherever you are. Now let's take a look at the map. So the first thing that you'll notice probably right off the bat is that the map in the search results screen now extends the full width of the browser. So this has been something that was a really frequent user request. It's just, using up all of the available space there for you, which is really nice. The next thing that you might notice is, again, that these icons have been updated just to be a little larger and a little clearer. If you hover on the icons, just like always, it's going to tell you with a little hover help or a tooltip what that functionality does. And those little tooltips have gotten a little facelift as well, hopefully to be a little clearer to read and understand. So as you look at these, one of the really commonly used items here is INRIX drive time. So if I click on INRIX drive time, you'll notice the next addition is that we've included a day of the week feature. So what's nice about that is if you happen to be working with someone who, say, has a non-traditional schedule, or maybe you're working with someone who, say, has a really tough commute on Friday nights, or folks who are concerned about the drive if it's a second property they're looking for, maybe to and from the shore, where they want to target their drive times to a specific time. I know personally when I lived in South Philly in the summertime, I was really concerned about what my drive home would be with all of the shore traffic. So that's just an example of how maybe you could use this feature and get really specific based on the day of the week, as well as the time and whether it's to drive to or from a specific location. Related to that drive time search is the ability now to include a search intersection of multiple shapes. So again, I thought most commonly to 2 or more drive times. Maybe you're working with a couple and one spouse has a commute to a specific location, and then the other spouse maybe works in a different location, and you're looking for a drive time that is going to make both parties happy. So let me show you what that might look like. So say it's someone driving to work and from work. So what you can do here then for them is when I hover on the red dot for the second item, you see how it gives me the option here in the menu to include intersection only. So what that's going to do is it's going to keep the 2 shapes. So I have them represented on the map for me. But if you notice, it removed all of the properties except those that are in sort of that happy place for the 2 different items. So if you've ever done sort of the old workaround for this, which is you would apply 2 shapes and then you sort of, if you're me, shakily manually tracing the overlap with a freehand polygon and then deleting the other 2 separate shapes so you're just left with the overlap, this is seriously a game changer. So this is something I'm really excited personally to use. So our next new addition is to add map layers regarding MLS status. So when I heard about this addition, I thought about how you might want to use this in terms of maybe you're looking at a hot sheet with a lot of different statuses and you want to show a more detailed visualization or illustration of activity that's happening in an area. Or, maybe you're doing a listing presentation and want to show the various MLS statuses in the neighborhood around the property as part of your presentation. So you can do this by going to the layers icon that's at the tool menu here at the top. And just like anytime you see a layer and it's in red, you'll see the word zoom in, and that just means we need to get a little bit closer in order to apply that layer. So I'm going to do that by hitting the plus, and it's most likely going to be looking for us to get to, I would guess, the parcel layer. And you'll know you're at the parcel layer when you see the grid or the overlay that shows the individual parcels. And there we go, they're starting to come in. So Let's try our layers now. We'll go to the heading MLS status, and then we can select those that we're interested in seeing. And we all know that inventory is a little light right now, so you'll notice it's not an explosion of pins that are coming in. Notice that if you do choose an off-market status like temp off-market or withdrawn or closed or expired, you'll be able to set the time frame that you want to include those. So there's little drop downs here. So if you want to change that, like maybe we want to see everything that closed in the last 6 months, we can apply that. Now, when we look at the map, we'll see the addition of pins. And like I said, because there hasn't been a ton of inventory, this particular area isn't showing a ton, but we do see this little pin right here off 422. And again, they'll be color coded. You see kind of the reference here, that green is active. So even though it doesn't meet the other criteria for my search, because it's in the general area and I've turned that layer on, I'm able to see that item. Kind of cool. Okay, so let's move on and let's take a look at the changes to the results tab. So when I'm looking at the results, one of the additions that you'll see here is a sort indicator that's been added to the search results headers. So previously, if you wanted to do a multi-level sort, you would go over to refine, and you can still do this, where you go into the sort and you can choose which of the fields you want to search by. To make this a few less clicks or an easier process to do, what you can do instead is just simply click on what the sort is. So right now I see with the down arrow that it's sorting by status. So if I want to additionally add a sort by price, I can click on that header. And then maybe my client is also really interested in, say, beds as the next. I can click on that one too. So what it's done is create a primary, a secondary, and a tertiary sort. So you can do, up to and including 3. And the last one you clicked on is going to be the most heavily weighted. So hovering over there, you can kind of tell, I'm not sure how well it translates to the screen that you're looking at. So if you take a look at these, you'll see the heavier arrow is the primary, and then slightly less heavy in the font is secondary, and then a lighter font is the tertiary. You can also, like I did, just hover on here to see the options, or to see the little tooltips that'll tell you what it is as well. These are all pointed down, so it means it's sorted in descending order. If I would want it to sort in ascending order, I would just want to click again, and notice how my arrow starts pointing up. Again, it's up to you how you want to do this. Another time saver that has been added to this area is the ability to navigate back and forth between displays and the one-line report. And what's going to happen when you do that is that if you're going back and forth, the one line will remember your place on the page. So say you're going through your list of results and maybe you're clicking on a particular one. So I'm going to say maybe I'm clicking on the MLS number because I want to see an agent full report for the ones I'm really interested in. Now, once I go back to the agent one line display, it's going to remember my position. Now, this isn't a great example because I've just got one page worth of examples here and I haven't had to scroll a bunch. I'm on a big monitor, so I haven't had to scroll a lot to get through my list. But where this really comes in handy is if you have a big, huge scrolling list, like say maybe you have your the number that displays per page is at 250 and you've got more than 250 results, or maybe you've got multiple pages. In the current system, if you go in and come back, it's just going to plunk you back, whether you use the browser's back or the Agent One-Line link, wherever in the list. It's not necessarily remembering your vertical scroll place on the page. This is another area where we've gotten a lot of requests about this. So for those of you who do look through maybe a huge hot sheet daily, this is just going to be a real time saver for you. Now, let's take a look at our sneak preview. So this is really exciting. We've got sort of what's next on the drawing board for coming enhancements to show you. And this is a great one. It's a real time-saving and accuracy boosting way to enter your listings into Bright. And this is called Bright's MLS Listing Assistant. And again, a little disclaimer here. This feature is currently in beta testing and it's projected for release in our third quarter. So what I am showing you the sneak preview of, based on the feedback that we get from our beta testers, there may be some tweaking to what you're seeing based on the types of feedback and what we hear from those testers. But without further ado, let me show you what this is going to look like and what your process is going to be once Listing Assistant launches. Okay, so I am in Listing Management and I'm going to click on New Listing. I'm going to choose my basic information with regard to what type of property it is, what the structure type is, what the ownership interest is, and I'm going to say next. Now, this is where you'll see it looks a little bit different. What we've done here is simplify the search for the listing in the tax records. And it's also going to be looking for previous instances in the MLS regardless of property type. So it's a little bit easier to search. So I'm going to look for, start typing my property, and you'll notice it's filling in for me possibilities. And once I see the one I want, I can select it. And once I've selected it, it's going to take me over and show me the tax record and then also those previous instances of the listing, and they're listed in reverse chronological order for me. So it's found 4 matches and I can select those that I want to compare against. So once I select at least one, I can proceed to compare. Now, if that is not what I want to do, or maybe it's not the correct property, notice there is an advanced search option. And if you click on that, it's going to take you to what looks like, and in fact is, our current search process. So if you need to do a more detailed search, you absolutely can do that. And you can proceed without a tax record if it is, new construction. You also have that option from this main page as well, where you can proceed without a tax record if no tax record exists. Though we would strongly encourage you, for your accuracy and efficiency, to at least search to see if you can find the property. So let me proceed here. And I'm going to go ahead. I can choose up to 4 options, or 3 along with the tax record. And if you did have a whole list of these, just as a general guideline, probably the more recent obviously would be the most accurate. At least that's what we would assume. So once we pick our properties, we can click on the button that says Proceed to Compare. And what it's going to do is sort of line these up for me like a spreadsheet, so I can compare and contrast the information that's added. Now, what you see in that comparison is going to depend on whether or not this was your listing previously. So the tax record is the tax record. So what you see there will be kind of consistent across the board. But what you see when it comes to the individual listings, again, is going to depend on whether or not it was your listing previously. So please note that options for remarks, photos, documents will only appear here if it was your listing previously, because obviously there's a copyright involved for photos. So we'll only give you the option to copy the photos from a previous listing if those were your photos, if that was your listing previously. Otherwise, it won't even be an option here. So as I'm looking at these, you'll notice over here at the very top, it's flagging the conflicting information. So we've got this little icon and it's calling out places where the information is different from one instance to the other. And even just scanning across this, you can see my map location is different. So there's a few different options within here. I can go step by step and take a look at these items and decide, one is definitely more accurate than the other. And as I scan these options, certainly things will be called out to me. So if I blanketly want to copy all of the information from one of these, say the tax record, I do have the option to just click on the link at the top with the arrow that'll move it over, and it'll copy all of that data into my new listing. If I change my mind at any point, and maybe I want to get rid of all of the data, notice there's an option to clear all data here. If I want to piecemeal, pick and choose, like maybe I want the aluminum siding moved over, I can just click on the arrow for that individual field if I want to kind of pick and choose which fields I'm going to include here. Now, if you do, click on one and then you click on, say, the one beside it, it's gonna overwrite your first choice. So it's gonna take whatever you clicked on the most recently, if you do the copy all, or you change your mind, it's gonna use what you clicked on last. So that's an easy way to kind of move things in and out. Notice also you can just X directly if you change your mind about an individual option. There are expandable features in here. So if, say, you want to see what's included in levels and rooms, if you click on that individual field, you'll get a pop-up and it's going to explain all of this to you. And you can choose to either use all the data, so it'll blanketly take it all over, or you can just exit out and get rid of it. You can also go through and just review what's in each individual section. So even if it's all the same, you can, or it hasn't been called out as a conflict, I should say, you still have access to review it all. Now, I want to make it clear that what we're doing here is really just creating an efficiency. This is all things that were available previously. You would have just needed to do maybe a little bit of research ahead of time if you were the listing agent to view in the MLS or the public records the history. Maybe you would have had to print these out for ease of use or keep them handy when you're filling out your property profile sheet. So none of this is sort of recreating the wheel. We're just creating sort of an easier process. And what we've seen in our testing is that this really makes the process and the accuracy of the listings that are being entered so much better, up to 3 times faster to enter a listing using this process. So once I've gone through and I've updated all of this information, I can say add these values to the listing, and it's going to check out and lock that. And then it'll take me over to edit, because of course we can't autofill every field. There are things like the list price, the agreement type, the dates. All of those things are of course going to be specific to the listing. But the beautiful part of this is that it just made your process so much faster and hopefully so much more accurate because you haven't had to do the pre-work. So I want to thank you so much for your time and attention today. And if you have additional questions or want to find out about more things to come, check out brightmls.com/search updates. Thank you and have a bright day.